Hello class, my name is Iffy Okafor for the class of Public Administration 500 with the instructor Miss Presley. My paper is about the Red Cross. The Red Cross was established in the 1800s by a guy named Henry Durant. Mr. Henry Durant was a Swiss businessman that who traveled through the area in which the battle was taking place. The battle was between Austria and the French. And as he was traveling through the battle, he witnessed a lot of things. He witnessed a lot of casualties on the floor, a lot of people that were dying but weren't able to be even get a chance of help to even see if they can make it from their wounds. And as Henry Durant was going through the battle, he thought of a plan, and he wanted to be able to try to help those individuals who weren't able to help themselves or weren't being helped by the leaders of their own armies. So he devised a plan to get 5 individuals. He asked around the town to get 5 individuals who were willing to put their lives on the line. Well, maybe not their lives, but their time on the line in order to help those individuals who were actually helping them in their battles. But instead of trying to just choose one person to help or one side to help, he decided to help both. So as he was walking through the battlefield, he saw over 30,000 to 40,000 casualties. He wanted to do something to help those individuals who didn't have the energy to help themselves. So he decided to come up with the group. So the group of 5 individuals went through the battlefield and aided to the individuals who were wounded from the battle. And as he was doing that, people were were happy that there was somebody actually trying to help those people instead of leaving them to die on the floor. Sorry for the long code. Often, as Americans or even as ordinary citizens of other countries, the outside looking in the United States, it seems that Henry Durant came up with an ideal that would be able to help other countries beside his. He persuaded, as he devised the plan, he persuaded the French to release a few captured Austrian doctors to help with those individuals that was in the war between Austria and the French. So those doctors that were persuaded to get out of jail, he used since they were doctors of medicine and understood how they could help those wounded individuals. He decided to use their methods and their techniques to help those people, and he paid for those individuals to get out of jail. In 1862, Dunant decided to write an account of what actually he seen on the battlefield and how he aided to those individuals who weren't able to help themselves. The committee again was set up with 5 different individuals who wanted to volunteer their time to help those people, and also the doctors who were released with Dunant's money. The more and more people heard about Dunant's ideals and what he wanted to establish around the countries that were battling. So by those people hearing that, his ideals started to spread throughout the different countries around Austria and the other country of war. And those people and those countries started to start their own organization. And Dunant started to call the organization the Red Cross. So they effectively marked the launch of the Red Cross movement. The symbol was of a red cross on a white background, reversed with the Swiss national emblem of a white cross on a background. In 1864, the Swiss government decided to set up rules on the list on the lines of how Dunant advocated on the basis of how he wanted the volunteers to run while helping in those battles. He wanted to establish guidelines and specifically methods and ideals for those individuals, so when they're aiding to the people that are in those wars, they'll be able to have an idea of what exactly he wants them to do. In other countries, they wanted to expand the idea of the Red Cross, and by them doing that, they were able to come up with an idea of helping those people. Sorry about that. But with the word spreading about Dunant's idea of the Red Cross, he decided Clara Barton was in Geneva while the expansion was happening. Clara Barton was in Italy, walking around, and she was seeing a bunch of individuals that started to organize around to start their own branch of the Red Cross in their selected city, which was Italy at the time. She was able to understand and comprehend what Dunant's idea was and how it was starting to expand at the different horizons. So Clara Barton used that idea and went back to the United States and was able to start to implement her own ideals of what exactly she wanted and how he wanted the Red Cross to be. So in the United States, she came back and in 1881, the American Red Cross was first organized. She was working as a clerk in the United States Patent Office in Washington, D.C. when federal troops began to pour in her city in the year of 1861. As I've already told you, she was in Italy at the time when she first heard about the Red Cross. And while she was hearing that, she came back to the United States and implemented her own society or group of members for her own as she was starting for the Red Cross. Clara Barton realized that the Red Cross was going to be a very big group because it was actually going to help people of need and families that aren't able to help each other. So as she was knowing, she realized the Red Cross could provide essential civilian disaster relief as well as wartime aid. Like I was saying again, she went to Europe and came back to the United States and discovered from her experience with the officials of the Red Cross out there that she was going to expand it to the United States. And again, it took a couple of years for the treaty to be signed due to the President Rutherford rejecting the treaty because he felt that this could mess up or interfere with the relationships with other countries, because some of the other countries didn't believe in Durant's ideals of trying to implement a group of people that aid individuals who they could be fighting or they're fighting with. And some of those the president didn't want to put our own his own beliefs and the beliefs of his own country online just because of an idea to help people who are in the time of war right now. So eventually the treaty was signed by his successor, President James Garfield, and he was very supportive and seemed ready to sign it even though he was assassinated. Finally, Garfield's successor, Chester Arthur, signed the treaty in 1882, and a few days later, the Senate ratified it and was put into action upon those signatures. With the American Red Cross, with Barton at its head, it was largely devoted to disaster relief for the first 20 years of its existence. The Red Cross flag flew officially for the first time in this country in 1881. Barton issued a public appeal for funds and clothing to aid more individuals. She had 50 volunteers roll the first train to Johnstown, Pennsylvania to help survivors of a dam break that caused over 2,000 deaths. That was one of the first things she did, and she put into action when she first started as the head of the Red Cross in the United States. Barton was a huge factor of implementing the Red Cross in the United States. With her doing that, they were able to help when another disaster came, and other disasters, and more of them, because the Red Cross was such a huge organization and had the power and funds to be able to do that. When the war of the Abyssinia happened in Ethiopia, the Red Cross was one of the first groups to come down there and aid Ethiopia. The Abyssinian War was between Ethiopia and Italy, if I'm not. Sorry again. I was mistaken. The Abyssinian War was between Ethiopia and Italy. So I was right. I'm sorry again. Ethiopia refused to abide by Italy's very own version of the treaty. The treaty they signed was the reason that the war even started was because Ethiopia wanted independence, and a lot of the other countries surrounded it didn't. I mean, some of them looked to Ethiopia as being independent, and some of them looked to being under Italy. And Ethiopia didn't want that anymore, so they signed the treaty. But the treaty was null and void because Italy didn't want to their own side of the treaty that they signed. They weren't backing it up, so they weren't able. The treaty was null and void because both sides didn't go. I mean, didn't do their side of the treaty, so they weren't able to do that. So the Red Cross had the opportunity to lead the organization, the first complete organization to come to Ethiopia and aid those individuals, which happened in October 4th of 1935. Another huge event that the Red Cross was able to come to was the Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina was one of the worst hurricanes that has ever came or hit the United States. It happened in Louisiana when it first happened, and it hit New Orleans. New Orleans was they were flooded. It was so much rain and so much water that the hurricane was, when it first hit the shores, it was at a Category 3, which is one of the worst hurricanes you could get. And by that happening, the levees under the city, which was New Orleans at the time, which it still is, was flooded, and a lot of people weren't ready for that, ready or wasn't able to have supplies ready for that to happen. So many people died because of that, and many homes were destroyed because of that. The government failed to be ready for this because they didn't think that this was going to be such a big ordeal as it was. But the Red Cross was, and after the aftermath, they were one of the first people again on site with over 2,000 people that came to the aid of these people. Even though they weren't able to get to the cities the well poverty, I mean the some of the poverty cities, they started from the cities they could get to.